All right. Black Box Radio. We are in the box. The community corners in the house. We got my co-host Twan and me. I'm Queen, and we got a special guest. We're gonna get to her. Special guest today. So the community corner is a unique um it's our unique segment because of course Twan calls it the corner, right, Twan?
Side talk, the corner. Yeah,
The corner.
corner. Baltimore, we Southern. You know what I'm
That's
saying? We got
right.
a lot
That's
of
right.
slave vernacular up here. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the Kona is a place where community leaders be what they are. They be community. So today we have a amazing topic. But first we're gonna start with Twan. We're gonna let him introduce himself, and then I'm gonna introduce myself, and then we're gonna jump in our topic. Go ahead, Twan. Tell us who you is.
I'm Antoine Qualls, founder director of Hope Baltimore, supporting services for the formerly impacted community to sustain stable transition from oppressed communities with resources and bridge building.
Love it. Resources and bridge builders. That's right. Well, I'm Queen from Black Box Radio, and I am a host here. Black Box Radio is a media platform for Black excellence. So we platform Black people. We talk about Black life, Black stuff, Black genius, our great and our bad. We just get it in over here at Black Box Radio. So please go and subscribe at blackboxradio.com. But today, this is the corner, the community corner, and we have a amazing guest and an amazing topic. First, we're going to start with our amazing guest. Our amazing guest is Lyn Twyman. Hi, Lyn. Say hi to the Black.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Good to meet you all.
We are happy to have you.
Cyberland.
Yes, we're happy to have you. That beautiful smile. And we're talking, and tell us who you are and what you do, and then we're going to jump in the topic.
Sure, definitely. So my name again is Lyn Twyman, and I am a domestic violence prevention advocate, social activist. I work in a lot of different spaces. Primarily, though, I do work in the space of domestic violence prevention education, just providing workshops, training, doing all different types of talks, lectures in the community to help educate our people about the dynamics of domestic violence, of course, how to prevent it, and if you find yourself in a situation, how to get out of it. And even more importantly, how to heal, right? How to heal from trauma. And so I have a program called LASERS, which stands for Leaving Abuse, Supporting Everyone, Restoring Survivors. And the motto is targeting domestic violence holistically.
Love it. Okay. All right. So domestic abuse.
Yeah.
From the beginning of time. And like I wrote today, and I've been thinking about this more and more, we've been in this contagion for almost 2 years, COVID-19. So it doesn't allow people to travel like they used to or before pre-COVID. And there's a lot of in the house. The first year we were really relegated to the house. And now, and that can be, you can't leave. You're with your abuser sometimes. It can be a very, very psychotic or very chaotic situation. And a lot of people have lashed out because of the stressors containing the COVID. Am I correct? They lash up on their families or people around them and they become abusers. So what do you say to like a person who's like, let's find out, what is domestic abuse first? Before we say someone's in it, what is domestic abuse? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so domestic abuse is any series of coercive or controlling behavior that one person does on another, commits on another. That's the simplest definition of it.
That's simple, okay.
And it can be psychological abuse or mental abuse. It can be verbal, emotional, spiritual, sexual, physical, financial, okay, verbal. So these are all different examples of domestic abuse. And in talking about just COVID alone, so what COVID has done, yes, there is an increase of domestic violence, reports of domestic violence and domestic violence that isn't reported. And the reason for that is because people, number one, are finding out that they are really either involved in dysfunctional relationships, or they have unaddressed trauma that for the first time they now have to deal with. And
Wow.
it's something about getting by yourself and in an environment where you actually have to be still. You don't
Yep.
have as many activities or distractions. And a lot of people use work as a distraction, right?
Mm.
And they historically, people have been able to go out to the club, go out to the grocery store, wherever, to
Yep.
get away from the one thing actually that they're running away from, which is themselves.
Whoa.
Mm.
It's not even their family that they're running
You're not
from.
even
They're
talking
running
about an
away from,
outside abuser. You talk about the
And
self.
so,
Woo!
right. Because
Whoa.
that's where it all starts.
Yes.
That's where all abuse starts. It starts with self. And if you
so
don't recognize how to respect
Oh,
yourself,
yes.
there is no way that you can even begin to respect another person. You won't even know what that looks like. And so, a lot of times, the way domestic violence has been taught is we focus so much on the abuser. But what I like to do is I like to share with people, you need to start with yourself first. If you're a victim, you got to start with yourself.
so
If
Wow.
you're an abuser, you got to start with
start
yourself
with yourself.
and figure out what is going on that is either causing you to
Cause
be in an abusive
yeah,
relationship where you are the victim, or what is causing you to be in an abusive relationship where you are the perpetrator and you
perpetrator.
are abusing, lashing out, whatever. And the thing is, we're so used to hearing about domestic abuse as being a physical issue,
Yes.
Mm.
battering, spitting,
Mm.
punching, kicking, knifing somebody up, shooting at somebody,
But you said
but it doesn't
financial.
start there.
Yeah, but you
Right.
said different types
It
of
all starts
abuse.
here.
Oh man.
Right.
Okay.
So what
I
COVID
think
has done is it has actually caused people to be by themselves to the point that they're like, oh my God, I can't deal with my thoughts. Yes, COVID is an additional stressor,
Mm-hmm.
but all COVID did was just bring out the underlying problems that were already there and enhance them, or brought them to the forefront that people didn't want to face about themselves and their own family environments.
Whoa. Go ahead, Twan. I know you want to come jump in.
you know, and Len, I want to really like thank you because like a lot of people always ask,
You're
right?
welcome.
And it
Mm.
was in 2015 that I was going through some stuff that Len got me to like really look at it. Tron, you gotta look at yourself and why are you picking the relationships that you are in? You know, financially, like the things that you're doing and trying to build, but have you healed and built with yourself to be in a self relationship before you actually go out and try to bring a female in to build and then destroy both of y'all. And repeatedly for so many years, I did that, and a lot of times with the drug use, the communities that we come up in, the households broken, subsidized, split up, separated. And like when she started naming like all the logistical triggers
All
that
abuse.
these things happen with, a lot of people probably gonna look and be like, wow, that's what a lot of the beef start from. That's what a lot of the arguments start from. That's why I really don't like her. That's why I really don't like him. But like be with yourself. I had to learn to be with myself and be in a relationship with me and play the part as the female would I accept the things that I had been doing to certain females, you know,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then as the male looking at it responsibly, is this really the way that you treat a woman, and then I got a daughter, so I really had to sit down and like, wow, you know what I'm saying? But like it always go back to the first teacher is the mother, is
Mm-hmm.
the woman. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Is the big sister.
Yeah.
So it's these things that we have to learn to repair ourselves and not that like, oh, she trying to control me and I ain't listen to her. And because sometimes some people see other things when they really have a concern and care about you. They see domestically how you damaging yourself and gonna hurt everybody that's
Mhm.
around.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's good work right there, Twan. And you know what, Lynn, you just blown me up today because the first thing I'm thinking of outside, someone hitting on somebody. We think of that when people normally think of abuse, somebody throwing, fighting in the street. These
Right.
are domestic abuse, a mother, a father hitting the wife or hitting the children or the elder in the house or just being a bully in the house. But no one thinks of the other things you name, the financial, keeping things from someone, like controlling the money.
Mm-hmm.
That is a way of control. That can be used for bullying and controlling someone. But more than anything, the abuser, and to be abused, you have to be broken to let it happen. Is that what I'm
Right.
hearing? Like you
Here's the thing.
okay.
So, relationship education is not something that is taught on a regular in the schools. They jump to safe sex before they even talk about relationship education,
You better
healthy
say
relationships. Okay.
that's
And
the
they're teaching
truth.
this to our babies in
Hmm.
elementary school, safe
Hmm.
sex in elementary school.
Really?
But excuse my French, like, what the hell, you know?
Really? I didn't know that.
This
Elementary
has been going
school?
on. This has been going on now for about a couple of decades. It's
Decades. Yeah.
ridiculous, or more. In some areas around the country, they've
Mm,
really like skipped everything, and just put the cart before the horse, as they say, right?
yes.
So what has happened is victims find themselves in situations where they're not even aware that abuse is happening, because again, domestic abuse always starts mentally first. When we
Mm,
see the physical side of domestic abuse, whether it's, actual fighting or whether it's sexual abuse, that is already the explosion that's taken
mm,
place. So there are four phases of domestic abuse. There's a honeymoon phase, the normal phase, the escalation, and then the explosion. So when we see people fighting, there's already been a history of
History.
mental abuse, some form of abuse before it gets to the physical part,
whoa.
most of the time. And then
Didn't
when
know
we
that.
talk even about sexual abuse, there's a grooming that typically happens in families on the victim. So I just want to clarify to make sure that the listeners understand that a lot of times victims go into situations not really understanding or being aware of what's happening because of the lack of relationship education. But then what happens over time is the victim ends up becoming used to being in a fight or flight or freeze state of mind, which is mental and psychological, that now the abuse becomes normalized.
Mm,
And sometimes they don't even believe that they're really loved unless they are being abused.
Yep.
And so it's this whole pattern of behavior that takes place that over time has to be broken for both the abuser and the victim alike, because the brain doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. The brain itself is just a conduit, it's just taking in information. So it's up to us, each and every one of us, to get the education so that we understand the information that's coming in through here, the eye gates, the ear gates, and then the sensory gates, the feeling, the touching, that we have the level of discernment to understand what's right and what's wrong and what to do with that information coming in, and then what to do with it going out.
mm.
Like like I say,
Well, let me get them four stages again. You guys said them four stages again. What's the first
Okay.
stage?
So there's a honeymoon stage,
Honeymoon,
the normal stage,
a normal,
the escalation,
and then
and
explosion.
then
explosion,
and then the explosion.
Wow. Honeymoon, normal, escalation,
Mhm.
explosion.
Right,
explosion.
Wow.
right.
Okay, go ahead, Twan. I had to get that again.
You know, every time we talk about this, and I think about the barriers, the learnings, and we transitioning and getting ourselves together. You
Hmm.
know, looking at tracing ourselves back from what we come from, seeing in the household, being a child, you know, being exposed this all through your adolescent life, secrecy, being told what not to talk about, verbally what's conjointly being told, this is how you supposed to do things, this is what you need to do. And for these periods, they longevity lasts with us. And I was just thinking about like how things grow into other levels in suppressing. We stay adjusted in the explosion mechanism. So
Mm.
then from that, you have gunfights. From that, you have setups being done. From that, it's never about what's the permanent issue that's happening right now. It's always something that's from the past that has developed and been on fire. And it's at a escalation to like fight or flight.
Mm.
And the tiresome part is like I ain't fighting no more. I'm flighting. So in the flight to defend itself, like verbally abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused, uh, adolescently abused, teenage abused, young male, then you enter an adulthood and everything around you is back to just that little old scared child
Right.
that was taken advantage of. Though you
Mm.
30, 40, 50, 60, 70, but you still at that age 7 where you was totally taken advantage of. And like the message, like it's a word that I say on so many levels, people won't say it, but it ain't. When molestation is not just a sexual thing, it's a prevalent level of life where you stay stuck at and afraid to come out of it. So, it's a dangerous ground, and this is why therapy and the reason why we do this advocacy to like help people ease their way out and build these networks. And this is a dominant piece, like Lyn kept saying, like domestic violence need to be the most prominent point long before job training is in place. And I was like, no, why can't we? But absolutely. How you gonna do that when you something? Because you're gonna go right into
You
an
about to
appointment
explode.
phase
Yeah.
with this, and you're gonna explode, and everyone can be in
Exactly.
danger.
You
Right.
know what? That's what we see with these killings around, at the workplace. And then, people are exploding then and they're shooting folk. But really, the breakdown, like you said, has started. We've seen honeymoon. Normalcy has happened. Then it escalated and they went on and exploded. And then we see it on the news. So, this is
Right.
so amazing. I'm learning something like people who are being abusive, we would say performative abuse, are actually domestic abusers at the end. They're
Right.
in the explosion phase. Am I correct in what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. And the thing
Whoa.
is that if we can understand the fundamentals of domestic abuse, then we'll be able to understand all forms of abuse, including domesticated abuse. Okay,
Yes.
because what is happening in the streets, in the community, and on a global level is just a self reflection of what's happening to the individual that's
Visual. Yep.
perpetrating the abuse,
Mm.
Yep.
that's
Yep.
allowing it to go on.
We
So if
listen,
you
this
want
is
to
sermon.
understand
You
bullying,
preaching now. You are preaching, Lyn Twyman. You coming. So you say, oh, you coming for real. This is I'm learning so much so
yeah,
quickly. So you're saying that what we're seeing, if we solve domestic abuse, or at least go after finding ways to curb it or get it into some type of control or understanding where we can understand the triggers of it, then we now can control other abuses that's happening in society. That's what you're saying.
Yep.
Correct.
right,
Absolutely.
absolutely
Wow.
correct. And here's the thing, another thing I want
Wow.
to point out too is a man or
Mhm.
woman, a male or female, can be an abuser. So a lot of times we think of the abuser as
That's
being a
enough.
male,
Yep.
but that's not the case.
Nah. Nah. Some females out here tough, sis.
Well,
Yep. It's it's so unfortunate. And so usually, they say who we are, we learn between 1 and 5. That's what we learn most of who we are, You learn how to your emotions, you learn how to get reaction from other people, all through crying and negotiating and learning within that 1 to 5. And by 1 to 10, what you learn, then that's really who you are. So
Right.
that's why your youth is so important, because if you learn very horrible behavior early, you will
Mm-hmm.
usually emulate that behavior at some point in your life, because you learned it at your formative time of learning who you are. And a lot of these kids are
Right.
seeing dysfunction in their house early. They're seeing, as you say, domestic abuse in the house early, and a breakdown of the family. So they already are in maybe normalcy state by the time they out here trying to make friends. And then somebody make them angry, they go straight into escalation. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? And then you look, they're in juvie at explosion at 11 and 12 years old. And we wonder why kids are so violent, or they're so angry. Why are you so angry? You're only 11. But they seen hell for 10 years.
And it's been normalized.
And it's been
Yes, hell has been
normalized.
normalized.
Yes.
Right.
Wow. I'm getting some
And
aha moments. Come
you
on, Toin.
know, you know,
Killing me.
like
Mm-hmm.
like I came up and we had the little thing. My mom and your mom was hanging out clothes, and then like that tension of respecting the hood and trying to prove yourself at an early age
Mm.
becomes a normalcy where after the game they start fighting, or we fighting, or I want to fight yo, or I want to fight her, or coming home from school. I remember like going to school when we was coming up, like like those that was going to Green Spring at a middle school age, they was coming down Dr. King, and it was like some type of intimidation, banging on the windows, and like they the youngins, but we was coming out, and we like fourth, fifth, and sixth. We was coming out like I ain't scared of none of them. So that whole attention already was like a domestic thing on a man-to-man basis. Looking at like at certain times in the community, certain guys had to stand on a foothold to be the forefront or the front liners, and thinking that everything that they had to do was fight to defend, because I ain't gonna be the chump, I ain't gonna be classified as getting beat up. So now we look at social media, that 1 out of every 4 videos you see tendency shows some type of domestic violence.
Mm.
2 women fighting, two bunch of
Really?
dudes jumping. You know what I'm saying? Dudes getting pistol whipped, dudes in a
Mm-hmm.
rap gang jumping out of crowds. I mean, it's so many different ways that they have implemented on communities of broken households and broken individuals mentally, that this abuse thing is normalcy. But in the escapade of it, you need to learn
Mm-hmm.
how to stay in an explosive state to make anyone that's around you to be on edge at all times to explode. But in the end result, we got to do whatever we got to do to not die on this moment.
Right.
And
Right.
the outcomes that you see is the shocking measure, because it's a violence against human existence in related ways that no one's caring about each other.
And we haven't even talked about the historical trauma among Black people.
People, right?
Of
Okay.
course.
We never even recovered
We
from
haven't talked
that.
about the generational trauma that we've been through as just being in terrorized for over 450 years. We never even talked about that
Right.
generational trauma that we've carried and packed and packed and packed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it wouldn't be bad for us to just explode at any time, because we've been through it, and we've been here, and we're still going through it, still oppressed in a lot of ways. So what can be, let's talk about some ways to deal with it. How do we deal with domestic abuse?
Yeah. So the first thing is we have to get out of our system. We actually have to do a cleansing, a
Mm.
personal cleansing, and we have to do a cleansing in our homes, just like Antoine was talking about with the media. We have to look at ways that it's been normalized and get that out of our system. And I
Yeah.
want to give a personal example. For several years, I purposely lived without a television, and all I had was a radio. That was a personal choice that I made because I realized that I was hooked on TV. That had been normalized in my psyche since I was a little kid. I said, it's something here when I don't feel comfortable in my own home unless the television is on. This is an addiction. Let me get this out of my system and then come back to it. I've gotten to the point now I don't even need TV. I don't need it, right? And I'm okay if I go days without watching it. So that is some of the things that we can implement. That's some of the more easy stuff that we can do. But I'm going to tell you where the hard work comes in. And the hard work is when we have to deal with ourselves and start looking at ways by which we've been programmed by our families, by our community, and then start to undo all of that and really have them, as I said, come into Jesus moment, right?
Right.
Literally.
Literally.
And start working with people that are qualified in this space. Like, for example, I do private coaching and helping individuals work through their trauma.
Oh.
And that's where the work really starts. Yes, you definitely, every person I believe should start, if they're not doing it already, do personal development courses, get books, start retraining and retooling your mind to think differently. The next step is to get with a trained individual that understands the dynamics of trauma and abuse and start working with that individual. And then circle back around to the books, the videos, and use that as maintenance. But then there's a third part to it too, because there's no one size fits all when we're talking about therapy, whether we have been victims of domestic abuse or we're abusers. So yoga, meditation, taking walks out in the park, doing some type of activity, hiking, journaling, music, art, all of these things have to be used holistically because we are mind, body, and spirit. We are mind, body, and spirit. So we've got to feed all these different aspects of us in order to be whole. We can't just feed the physical part where we're out there doing yoga or sports or whatever all the time, but then we're still running away from this. We can't just keep feeding this all the time, but we don't exercise the body because that's healthy too. And then we still have to feed the spirit. So whatever spiritual practice that you belong to or you adopt, to also look at that as well. Even you could be an atheist listening to this. And if your God is a God of atheism, so be it.
So be it. Yeah.
It's no judgment. And still, we've got to look at all three aspects of what makes a human being. Because the great thing about being a human is that we can literally we have the choice to be what and who we want to be. We are able to shape, cultivate, and create who we want to be. The animals don't have a choice in doing that.
That's true. That's true.
Even domesticated animals, they don't really have a choice. They become what the owner wants them to be, allows them to be. But as human beings, that's what separates us from animals.
The space.
We create.
Yeah, we create. And look what we're creating, though. It's so unfortunate that we have such unbelievable power, but we create so much oppression, chaos, drama in our own creations. It's like man will kill itself. That's what my grandma used to say. But I want to say two things of what you said. Like, media is very important, and you're so right. And we're twins in this. I'm in my 7th year without a television. And so I'm very clear how television has changed. Stop watching TV has changed even the way that I learn. I used to have to see something. Now I can hear. I use my ears more effectively. I listen to people. I used to see it and start being able to deal. Now I have to listen more. And I mean, I see other skills that I'm using that the television took away. And then also, I remember when I was in college, we used to love what's the other guy where he used to fight? Oh my gosh, they used to come.
Jerry Springer.
Jerry
Jerry Spring.
Springer.
Yep.
He's the first one who normalized fighting other than boxing and, sports. But when you wanted to see Jerry Springer, you knew Terry was going to fight and they was going to carry
That
on.
was the whole domestic violence promotion piece right there.
Right.
On television. If you think about Jerry Springer came with that foolishness and we loved it. And they continue the shows, all the shows, they fight each other. And then now we in the reality TV and now they fighting in real time. It was like we were introduced slowly through the media, and then also the news is always around negative behavior. We do not want to hear about information and things that make us better humans. We want to hear about all of the stuff that we think is sensationalized, which is drama and fighting and killing and all of that. So the news kind of is that part of it too. But media has a responsibility, and that's where the television comes in, and we watch television. I remember my grandmother, they had radios. They didn't have this love for television that we had. I remember she would turn on the radio and we'd be out out in her yard and in her garden. It was more of doing other things. But now we're in this digital age, and television and media is so present in our lives. I'm really afraid of what's going to happen to the next generation, because this is all they see is a bunch, stuff on hip hop, that stuff that come on those reality TV. They're fighting and cursing and carrying on, and the women are naked. It's a lot of negativity on television, in other words. So I like what you said when you said you left the TV alone and media, the responsibility of media. I remember that with Jerry Springer. That's the first violence I saw on television. To that, I don't know about y'all, but that's what made me think about.
Well,
like
Go ahead, Toin.
I always think back to a quote of like Marcus Garvey and the guy Noble Ali, right? And he used to say, "If I can get you to think, you can save yourself." And I used to always ask guys, like, what is it that we are really thinking about? And for a long time, prison, everybody didn't have TVs in that cell. They was just on the tip. And when you locked in, it was you and your thoughts and cultivating and facing your realities and learning to, like you say, learn other senses and sit still, hear things, think clearly. And a lot of guys got into reading. So a lot of dudes should go in a solitude and stay in for 30 days, 20 days, 10 days and just read. And I think now, like, television has been used as a power dynamic way to captivate and cast people on what they want them to be focused on. That streaming is now on cell phones. People ain't even gotta be in no house. I see people walking up and down the street watching Hulu. You know what I'm saying?
Watching the show.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So like things have been come to a controlled caste system, and like you said, Queen, I'm really worried because people don't even think back about when cultures of people were in caste systems and separated on different levels of the marketing base of who was an upper class, a lower class, and a lesser class. And the insufficiency of like not understanding consistency to move forward puts a person in a state of grief where that becomes natural. And out of that grief cause you to create harm, all kinds of turmoil, destruction. So like, I honestly thank like my higher power really that like on so many levels of the experiences and the network of people, because a lot of times people always say like, Toin, like, yo, you changed in so many ways. Bam, you are like so different. You're not the same person. I say, man, I know who I was from the age of 12 till 42. And I seen
And I'm
it in the
smiling right
last.
now. Let me just interrupt you real quick. I'm smiling right now because I know that you are even a more calm person than when we
Yes.
first met. So you are right. I mean, you're
Really?
spot on. Transformation. Woo, telling you.
Transformation, transition,
And I see
Yes.
him too. I've
transformation.
been knowing him, and he's different from when I first met him. He's like a chameleon. I tell you, every time I see him, he got a new piece on his back. One of them lizards that change color. Every time I see, he's yellow now. Always got a new color. He's just getting better and better, and that's a beautiful thing, like to see
Love it.
yourself grow.
I love it. I love it. And the other piece is dramatic. Like the people we work with, and when you see them grow,
Mm.
because I seen it. Queen, I seen it. But then, like, I'm talking on so many other levels, and we have affected. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really working because when I look out and see other people, they growing right with us. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? They just growing in the level of like, it says they call it like this circle where you in a, 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 a pre-contemplation stage, contemplation, positive, negative, deciding, maintenance, and then acting on it, and then having stability. Meaning just like you stable and you recognize what damages you, so you stay away from it. What things keep you calm, so you embrace it. You know what I'm saying? But just taking your time to like live with yourself and endure that energy that attracts people to want to live.
Mm. All right, Lyn.
Mhm.
Twan is singing over
Yeah.
there. What you got?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's the thing. It's like when we're talking about saving ourselves as individuals so that we can save our families, our community, and really forge healthy relationships with one another.
Sure,
You
sure.
know, we Tuan just said so much about what happens when you can get by yourself.
Yes.
Unfortunately, for so many of our people, melanin dominant people, Black folk in America, that has come, unfortunately, by the way of incarceration, for example.
Yes.
And that's a part of the tragedy because I see so many men and women that come home and they have so much clarity. They
Mm.
have so much clarity. They have so much drive and so much will to live and to serve. And there's so many of us that have had our freedoms all of our lives, and we take this for granted.
You
We
better
take
know
it for granted. And it's like when you have your freedom taken away from you, and then when you have people that literally choose to go off into the mountain or go off into the desert, and to get alone, the difference in coming back from both situations is always the same if you take the time to work on yourself. And it should not, however, we've got to get to a place in society where people don't no longer have to be sent away to prison or incarceration in order to retool. If we allow this type of education to permeate all aspects of our society.
Right.
it. That
So
is
school,
amazing. Go ahead.
the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
your faith-based institutions, you name it. Because now we're training up the children in the way that they should go. And when they get older, they won't stray away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in terms of some remedies, if individuals, before you get to the point where you have that explosion or you injure somebody else or you even commit some other type of crime or offense or whatever, get by yourself, slow down, and begin to do this retooling process. Get with a therapist, use self-help, programs, products, get out in nature, okay, connect with trusted family members and friends, and start doing that inner work.
Mm.
And if it requires that you do a retreat, yoga retreat, meditation retreat, do some type of retreat where you can get still and alone and work with somebody that's trained to help you to do that, you're going to come out better on the other side. You're going to save yourself. You're going to save your relationships. And in that process, you're going to have better health too. So we don't even talk about how unaddressed trauma from childhood and then being abused later on as an adult or being an abuser as an adult affects the health for both the victim and the abuser. So many different layers to this.
Wow.
So many different layers to
So
this.
you're talking about the physical health. So the physical health can be,
Physical health.
wow.
Physical health. And then let's also not forget the emotional health, because that's the most important,
That's the
and
most
the
important.
mental health, emotional health, and the physical health. Again, mind, body, spirit, all those things have to come together if we're going to be whole. If we're going to be whole. And the other thing too is, safety planning. We can definitely talk about that. I want to make sure that individuals know that if they find themselves in an abusive relationship, you have that gut feeling that you're going to lose your life. There's ways to go about doing the safety planning as well.
Okay, we're going to dig into that next
Mhm.
because, wow, I never, you know what? I've learned so much in these last 40 minutes about because, we cannot explain, like I just read a statistic. Crime in 2020 has raised 31% violent crime, 31% in 1 year.
Percent.
That
Yeah.
that that is high
Mhm.
for violent crime. Just one. We have regular crime still doing this thing, but violent crime has risen because and again, they can't define why. And it's human, and there's a lot of other factors. We got COVID. We got a lot of factors. People are suffering. It's a lot of factors going on, but if we talk and we deal with what you're saying, domestic abuse, or what people have been exposed to,
Mhm.
and either being the abuser or the abused in a situation, family, or just seeing it from the outside. If we start dealing with that and therapeutically deal with people, and as you said, it's a synergy, mind, body, spirit.
Mhm.
Would we see what we're seeing? More women are dying in Baltimore City than ever last year, and we're on track to beat last year. There's a problem going on with the human per se.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And that's the thing. If we had this training, if we had this kind of education, and our parents, they weren't born with an instruction manual.
Mhm.
Their parents didn't hand them a manual for life. But now that we have the tools and the information, it's up to us now to get that information out. First
Mm,
of all, for us to learn it,
sure.
we have to be teachable, and then we have to be teachers.
Mm,
And we don't have to be teachers in a formal sense, but all of us are teaching somebody something, whether we realize it or we're conscious about it or not. We're all teaching somebody something. So we might as well stop having fear or thinking of ourselves inadequate and say, what I do know, let me share it with the next person, right? What I
mm.
am capable of doing, let me take a little bit of my time and my talent and contribute in this way towards helping a group of young people, for example, or a group of folks that have come home from incarceration, right?
Right.
And if everybody did their part, there's this rule about the 10%. If everybody did just 10%, then the world would be a much better place. To your point, we wouldn't have all this increase in abuse. And if the abuse takes place, then people will know what to do before it's too late. See, that's a problem. People are not even aware. They're not even aware of the warning signs, and they can't even recognize what they're seeing in front of them, the reactions that they're seeing in front of them with their loved one or with a coworker, because they're not taught,
So
because
do
not
you
enough
think
of
this should
us.
be something that's part of curricula? Do you think this should be schools, part of curriculum, like human studies or human behavioral studies? That should be something that we're teaching young people?
Absolutely. It needs to be
Absolutely.
standard, just like reading and math. I
Wow.
mean, what's the good?
How can you be
What good
smart
is
if
it to
you,
learn?
yeah, if you can't even take care of your own emotions? You
Right.
know, you can,
Relationships makes the world go round.
yes,
Without relationships, we wouldn't even have technology because groups of inventors and engineers have to come together and learn how to work together. If
yes.
you can't even learn how to work with somebody else, there's no creation. All there
Mm.
is destruction.
Look at you, Lynn. You coming. All right. All right. So this domestic abuse, man, I just never thought it could connect like this, but I see the connection and definitely, we look at the neighborhoods that Black people are ascending from. We look at the type of relationships, the breakdown and the chaos in the family and the breakdown in our families. The poverty. Poverty is a mental health condition.
Mhm.
And you look at these many things that, and then we talk about our generation unpacking of what we've been through and terrorizing living in this and living in America. So we got all of these things as a people, and then we still have to make it in this society, go to school, do this, do that, work for it, and make our families go forward. So becoming abuser, if you don't deal with your stuff, is easy. And also, a lot of abuse is like me. I love to eat. You gotta watch, people become overweight because they're abusing food. It's a drug. It can become a drug. And so you see in a lot of times in our community, we fat. Black women are educated and going through a lot, but they're addicted to food because they're just trying to keep it, trying to do everything on the fly, not eating correctly, not having time for self. So it's so many things and dynamics in our community when it
Mhm.
comes to abuse, but it all is domestic first.
Right.
And then we go out and add more. We overwork, we overdo, we overstress. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And that word domestic is just another fancy legal term, if you will,
Right.
for what happens in the home.
Mm,
What happens in the home?
yep,
You got your home, your four walls, or wherever you might live that you call home, and then you got your community, which is your home too.
sure.
And there's so many different ways that we cope or we deal with the trauma that we've experienced. That if it goes undealt with, it causes us to lash out at the people that we love unknowingly and
Mm,
knowingly as well. And so, overeating, undereating, oversleeping, undersleeping, gambling, um, different types of compulsive behaviors, you name it.
yeah.
Okay, these are all different ways that we manifest. Having self image problems, right? Always
Self
thinking that you don't
esteem.
look good enough. So you got to keep getting multiple plastic surgeries and multiple this
Yes.
and multiple that. Okay.
Yes.
And if we just dealt with why we keep running from ourselves and
Yeah.
thinking about, okay, um, what is it that's causing me to feel uncomfortable in my own body?
You
So
stepping
many
on
of
these
us,
girls, Lynn. You stepping on them. They go into the plastic. They getting their money ready. You are
right,
stepping on these ladies. They out here getting their butt done and their titties done, and they getting. I even see a friend of mine just got an permanent eyeliner. I'm like, when has it become a problem to put on? I mean, they're just doing everything they can do.
yeah, all these things in excess, right? All these
Yeah.
things in excess. And a part of the issue that we have too is that so many of us don't understand how to forge healthy relationships with one another.
Mm,
And talking about the Black community, Black men and Black women coming together. So
mm.
people are overcompensating. They're doing way too much. Now, let me just make it clear. It's not bad to fix yourself up, right? It's nothing wrong with that.
But
Nothing
when
wrong
is
with it.
fix yourself up, Lynn? Because they think getting their butt lifted and getting them double Fs. That's fix
Right.
yourself up. So
Yeah,
what do
there's
you mean by you got to really define fix yourself?
right. So just basic grooming, right?
Okay.
Enhancing what you already have
Okay.
as naturally as possible first.
First.
First, do that first.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, no matter what kind of relationship you're in, people want to know that they're dealing with somebody that's real.
Yes.
Real physically, real emotionally, real spiritually, right? Can you be real? And so what we do on the outside is really just a reflection of what's going on the inside. Now, I will say this. If a person, if it makes them feel better to do different types of plastic surgery, so be it. I want to pose this question to you. When is enough enough? Can you be okay with just that one procedure? Or do you find yourself repetitively needing to go back and fix something else and fix something else and fix something else? And are you really doing it for yourself? Or are you doing it for somebody else because you're lacking something that you're not getting? And if you're doing it for yourself, are you doing it in good conscience, or has it become an addiction? So these are all the questions that we've got to ask ourselves when we're doing certain things to enhance ourselves, right? And so I just like to pose those questions to people because I
Wow.
don't want to be in a space where of condemnation,
Okay.
but we all have to just look at why we do what we do. Now,
But
if you
men
feel
are doing it
like,
too, Lynn. The men are
I
getting
was going to say
they're
that. I was
getting
going to say
butt.
that men are doing it too.
Men are getting butts. Men are snatching their waist. That's
Yeah.
the truth. Men are doing,
Yeah.
and a lot of white men, they're giving themselves butt. I mean, they're not. They don't want to look like a woman, but they want a butt, and it's happening. Men are snatching their waist, they're getting rid of their bellies. It is happening every time. I swear, I couldn't believe men that was doing as much as they are. They are, and we've come to a place in society where the human doesn't even like itself anymore. We've gotten so technical that, like, listen, if you don't like it, let's change it. We don't work out. It's nothing, no way to do it physically. We don't change our diet. We just cut it off.
Right.
And we got to watch ourselves.
Work on loving yourself first. Like fall in love with your mind, your own mind. Because if you're running away from your thoughts, that's the first place that has the problem. You got to fall in love with your own thoughts. If you can't
where the problem's at.
Look, let me share something with you, right?
Come on with it.
So I do yoga, meditation. I've been in large groups, small groups that do meditation, right?
Right.
For people that are doing meditation for the first time, a lot of folks start to cry when they just get still and they get quiet. They begin to cry because a flood of emotions just start coming to their mind that they haven't been dealing with in a long time.
Because they're sitting still.
Because they're sitting still. And that's another conversation for another day in terms of how to work through the different stages of meditation and yoga in a safe way, especially if you've been traumatized and you're still working through your trauma, because your memories can really affect you on a physical level. But that's just an example. So many people are running from their own thoughts instead of dealing with their own thoughts first and then working on everything else. So if after you've dealt with all your thoughts and you love who you are at the end of the day after your own thoughts, and you still want to get that butt implant, do it.
No, you better not say that. No.
But I'm going to share with you.
But you did do it.
9 times out of 10. If you deal with this first, you're going to find out that all this other stuff that you thought you needed, you don't really need.
I know a young lady that left here and did that. She left Baltimore, went to a foreign country, and died in that country, and left children.
Right.
And what did it's just so sad. You go and want to change your body. And what legacy are you leaving for your children? Your children have lost you. And what do they have? And you taking money for so we got to watch the things that we are investing in and investing from. I always say you got to build from inside out.
Yeah.
These endowments that we put on the outside, after a while, they won't even do any better, because once you get old enough, let me tell you something. I don't care what you put on it. The skin is sag, the color is ashy. You just gonna show up and don't care what nobody say.
Right.
And so just think you get older and you showing up with all of these adornments, and your skin it's not doing the same thing that it was doing when you was 20.
Right.
Think about cleaning up the inside first. And then I just think people who are grounded, they're not worried about that type of stuff.
Yeah. And that's, you said something that's so important, which is grounded, right? Grounded. Humility. The root word of humility is humus.
Humus.
humus. And
Mm,
humus means ground.
mm.
It literally means ground. Okay.
Taught me something today.
So we have to be grounded. We come from the earth. This is what many spiritual teachings tell us, that we come from the earth.
Yes.
Okay. So we're already, everything that we need, we already have. It's in us. We got copper, we got iron, we got traces of gold. All these things that come from the earth is in us already.
Yes.
So we are already born whole and complete. But it's people on the outside that have told us different, that we have to now unwire and rewire, right?
Mm.
Drink your water. Drink your water when you first wake up. Drink your water throughout the day, and drink your water before you go to sleep at night. Make sure you're getting proper rest. Make sure you're feeding yourself more fruits and vegetables than anything else. Than anything else.
Yeah, anything
More
else.
fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Okay. Before you do the pastas and the breads, everything that is processed. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to tell people whether they should be vegan, vegetarian, or whatnot. But I'm saying if you get a majority of water, fruits, and vegetables in your diet, your body will stay naturally in balance. And make sure that you focus on this. Because once you're able to control the brain's going to tell the water what to do. It's going to tell the food what to do. It's going to tell your mind what to do to process all of those emotions. But again, mind, body, and spirit, we've got to create this full circle to be whole.
So what are we working? So what are people working in? So we got to create this full circles. The circles here, we're human. So are people just working with the body and they forgot the mind, and that spirituality is just too far? So what are most people functioning in? Body, because if you can't be thinking of some of the shit, some of the stuff I see going, they're not thinking. So people are just walking around in a body and just doing what they do. Am I correct?
Yes. They're working and dealing in an emotional body. And I think,
Yeah,
Twan,
just
you
the
want to say
emotional
something.
body. They're just doing. They're just
I
doing.
think it's an out of body experience. I'm trying to say,
That might be it.
the
They're not
body
even
is
in the
dead, but
body.
they gone.
You better know it. They're not even
Man,
dealing with the
Marcus
body,
said,
man.
man, Marcus said, we left our bodies, we left our minds in Africa and brought our bodies to America.
That's it.
So,
That's what
all
Marcus
right.
said. And you're right. I
Right.
mean, I just wonder about that because we said we got to create this synergy. It's not like you're here without a mind. Let's be clear. You're here with that. And you're here with some type of spirituality. It's in you. God is in you. So spirituality is there. You have to seek it and build it out so it becomes something that you use as a source. But it's all there. And so my question is, how we get people, okay, because we got people, we know they're walking around with this, like Twan said, this out of body experience that they're walking in. How do we get them into a safe space? Like getting out of domestic violence, getting into a place where they can think and really deal with who they are and that voice that's inside. How do we go to the safety? We said we would segue into that. So how do we get there?
Yeah. So first of all, it's programs like this, just continuing to spread the word, give people the opportunity to just begin to think about the issue first and foremost. Because
Yeah.
even if a person doesn't believe that it applies to them, at some point they're going to run across somebody that is dealing with it, or they might find themselves in a situation too. Even if it's not at home, it could be in the workplace.
Mm.
Okay. So you got, again, domestic abuse and domesticated abuse. And all of this stuff still stems from individuals not dealing with their own trauma and bringing their mess from home out into the community or around other loved ones. So, in terms of safety planning, if you find that you are in a relationship with abuse and it's happening in your home,
Mm-hmm.
what you can do, you can contact me. You can contact a local domestic violence program in your area and ask to speak with an advocate,
Mm-hmm.
and they can work with you on a safety plan. Now,
Okay.
I will say that having a safety plan is not something that it just happens overnight. A lot of times, victims, whether they're male or female, cannot just leave right away. Okay.
Okay.
And so, with that being said, there has to be a plan in place. All things have to be considered. If you're single, it's a little bit easier, but if you have children, there's a lot more involved. So
Yeah.
that's number one. Again, whether you're male or female, some people have to save up money. Some people have to gradually ease their way out of the relationship till one day when the abuser leaves the scene, they take all their stuff and they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, living in the same community doesn't even help, right? You've
You
got to
gotta
find
eject
safety
yourself. Wow.
all the way away, like hundreds, maybe even thousands of miles away, right?
Wow.
So the most important thing for anybody listening to this program, I will say, is to contact your local domestic violence program. You can do a Google search, or contact or go to the website for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That's really the first place to start. And my website has resources too on there as well,
What
which
is
is
it?
www.wearelasers.org. And that's spelled www.we for we, RARE, lasers, LASERS.org. And so you can contact me on the website, send me an email, or call the number or text the number on the website. And
Put that in the
I'll be able
chat.
to help assist and put more information in your hands. And I do workshops, I do trainings. I've trained law enforcement officers, diversion workers, I've trained clergy members, private consultations and coaching, just the whole 9 yards. I've been in the prisons and done training in the prisons as well. So
So you've done this everywhere. Okay. Um, that's what we need.
And
You need a safety plan. Go ahead, Twan.
and we coming up on October, which is Domestic Violence Month.
that's
That's
right.
why we're here.
That's right.
She said she wanted to
I
come
got the
before
purple
domestic
pen.
violence, Mom.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yes.
And this is a good source. I mean, we're a few days away.
Yeah.
This month is ending. Very
And
Friday is the first.
yes, and wear your purple for domestic violence prevention, awareness, and education. Wear your purple.
Wear your purple. Ooh, the royal color of Africa. Love
That's
it.
it.
Purple. All right. So I want to kind of end and talk about people who do not recognize, because what I see is a lot of people are in this circle of abuse, and they think it's okay. Like, this is what they've been doing from the onset of life. Mama did it. Mama did it. Pop, he's good with it. But really, you're ruining generations of people. So, and then also the abuser who has not dealt with their trauma. How do we get to the people who don't even, you said reach out. They don't even recognize they're abusing or being abused. So
Right.
that's some of the things too. A lot of people don't even know that their shit stinks. Excuse my language. And
Yeah.
it's abusive.
No, you're right. It has to be grassroots. It has to be knocking on doors,
Wow.
creating safe spaces and circles in communities, and just having those conversations with a handful of people, organizing, doing events where maybe you serve, free pizza and, some water, or, I try to put all the healthy stuff out there. I try not to say soda and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
good job.
But,
What?
water, tea, right? Water and tea is safe. Lemonade, right?
Yeah.
And just start gathering our young people together to talk about these issues. Rec centers, community centers, faith-based institutions. It has to be something done grassroots. And using social media as a tool and not as a weapon, to get the word out there. I mean, these are all ways to do it, and to do it consistently. And no matter what your calling is, like Queen, I'm so grateful for you because you have this platform and you've opened it up to talk about this issue. Twan has his platform. If everybody did their part and opened up their platform to talk about this at least one time a year, especially during October, look at how much more of an impact we'll make. If employers open up and talk about this issue, how much more of an impact we will make. But again, people can't recognize because they're not getting the information. That's why we have to open up our platforms
That's
to keep
why you
talking
have to
about it.
do it. We have to normalize this conversation and normalize
Right.
this information. So children early, even in their own home, be like, this is not how houses should be. This is not how a house should function. And not having, and they might never see it, but they have the tools that they're being taught maybe in school. And you're right. How do you teach safe sex if you don't teach how to relate?
Right. Right.
Because we're such a sexual society and so worried about sex. And
Yeah.
we're not worried about how young people relating with each other. Because to get to sex, you got to at least talk to the person. You can't just walk up and start having sex.
Mhm.
So the relationship, sometimes if you don't know how to relate, you're young, and the way that you go after your first, or the mate of the whoever you're going after may be abusive,
Right.
just because that's all you know.
And you know what? Let me share this with you just real quick. I know we're running up on past the hour now, but
Mm-hmm.
we're a little bit past the hour. But my first relationship ever was with a man. Okay, I didn't even date before this. I was 19. My first relationship ever was with a man who was not only mentally and emotionally abusive, but he was physically abusive as well.
Ah,
Right. And so I learned this, and I thought that I could help change him. But some of his behavior was normalized for me because of what I saw in my father growing up. And coming up, we didn't have relationship education in the schools. We had sex education then in elementary school.
ah.
So, you know, this is a real crisis that we actually have on our hands. Drugs, drug abuse, drug misuse,
Comes
alcoholism.
from domestic abuse. It
It
starts there.
Right. And that is not the crisis. Opioid addiction is not even number one crisis.
Crisis. Nope.
A majority of individuals that are in incarceration, for example, have histories of domestic abuse where either they were
Abuse.
abusive or they were being abused or they were protecting a loved one from
One.
abuse.
What?
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
so
Absolutely.
you're saying the crisis that we're talking about when it comes to opioid, and I know why we're talking about, because white people are dying. That's why it's become a crisis, because drugs has been a crisis in this country. We had a crack epidemic that everybody made a joke about in the black community. But opioids is number one. But what I'm seeing, so you're saying that that's not even a crisis of our society. The crisis is domestic abuse. Is that
It
what you're saying?
is. It
Mm.
is. That's the number one crisis going on
Like,
right now.
whoa,
When
That's
you
the
look
number
at
one crisis.
whoa.
most of the charges of domestic violence, you'll find it's behind either alcohol use or drug abuse. So like, it's not the opioids; it's the people that suffered with these violence, predictive victimization, or being predated or aggressively controlled that causes them to lash out on measures. And this is what has been the epidemic,
Yeah.
even in violence. They said like 41% of homelessness ends in domestic violence
Mhm. And these
situations.
rates, right. And these rates are even higher, okay? Because a
Yeah,
lot of people can't
yeah.
recognize, like you talked about, Queen, they can't even recognize, or they're
Mhm.
too ashamed to talk about it,
Talk about
or because of the trauma, they literally forget certain things that have happened in their childhood, which is very, very
Hmm.
common,
it.
right?
Yep.
Wow.
So
So they
they're
even
not
have
even
it.
aware. They're not even
Really?
conscious.
They're not even conscious of it. They're not
So
even
they
telling
pack it
it
away,
now.
don't even know it's there anymore. But it is
And
there.
they not reported.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? When they talk about 2.2 million people are affected by domestic violent cases, what about the how many is it that wasn't reported? That's what we know
Right.
that was reported.
Right.
We have really, really an issue that no one wants to touch. They don't want to touch that, because now when I hear domestic abuse, it's like what we do in chemistry. We have a base formula, and it might be carbon and hydrogen, but you're using maybe two more parts of hydrogen or two more parts of carbon, but still a base formula.
Right.
It's carbon dioxide. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? We might build a million things: carbon hydroxide, carbon disodium oxide, all of these other things we add. But the
Mhm.
basis starts with that one formula. And you're saying the basis of our issues, let's talk about it, is domestic abuse.
Right. Yep.
Mhm.
Domestic abuse.
Domestic abuse,
Like, whoa.
not addressing that trauma, not
Yep.
addressing that trauma that we have.
Mm,
Yep.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
They
I want
won't
some.
talk about it.
Sister Lynn, you got to come back.
I will be back.
Oh,
Just
you
tell me
got to
when.
come back. You have busted me up today. This is the first. Let me tell you something. I never write in the chat, but I'm writing so people can access it later and they can see the chat. Like, things that we said, like incarceration should not be a mechanism for retool. I wrote that. You can be a domestic abuser if you have not dealt with your trauma. I mean, I wrote so many things because I'm just like, the 4 stages of abuse. I wrote that too. You know, I never wrote in the chat before. You done got me taking notes to the folks. I love it. I love it. You got the
so grateful, my sister.
Then you canceled 49 times. I couldn't get in touch with you 52 times. Are you still there, Lyn? Lyn, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, something happened. You canceled 59 times. I couldn't get in touch with you 103 times.
You know what?
But you're here this time, and it's the bomb time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I really appreciate what you brought. And, you know, I always say a lot of times when we do what we do, especially in the corner, what we're doing is we might not have a lot of people listening immediately, but they come back.
Yeah.
And they source the videos. And it's important for the information to be sourceable from folks that might look like you, or you might can even trust sometimes. Because a lot of information we just, I don't want to hear that. That ain't happening. Mm-hmm. That ain't what Black people. The Black people sometimes need to talk about stuff that's happening in all communities, but it's happening to us because we have lived experiences. Right. So I really appreciate this conversation. You have to come back. I will. Oh man, this domestic abuse is just, you said it deals with incarceration. That's a problem. Homelessness. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. In the workplace.
Can't get away from
in the workplace.
In the workplace. Yep. In the home. Mm-hmm. It's talking about cancer. This is one. This is cancer of society.
In the church.
In the restaurant.
In the
church. In the restaurant.
Did you say the church?
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The church is doing it too. The church never absolve. They always in it. Man. Okay. All right, Lyn. I want you to give them give the black boxes a jewel. Knock them down with a jewel, and we out of here off of that. We got to get that jewel though. Let's get a jewel. Give us something to go home with.
Yeah. So self-reliance is the most important thing that you can have. If you can't rely on yourself, meaning you can't rely on yourself to be responsible and responsible with your emotions, with your thoughts, what you do with your body, you're not going to be successful. Now, people have different ideas about what success is, but it's like that verse from the so-called good old book, you know, what profit a man, or what profiteth a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? And so many of us are losing our souls in the process of not dealing with our trauma. And we are creating abusive relationships with ourselves and with others around us. So love thyself at all times and get the help that you need. Quick, fast, and hurt.
Why am I getting that feedback? I don't know where that's coming from, but thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm going to mute myself just in case.
Yeah, it's coming from someone. Okay, you muting? Yeah, you muted. Might have came. I don't know. Might even come from mine. Twan, are you running something over there?
No, I was trying to plug my charger in, but I couldn't reach it.
Okay, well, we're gonna get up out of here. We got a feedback thing going. I don't know how to stop it.
That's what happens.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's what happens. You know.
This had on Monday. And we've had a beautiful discussion about domestic abuse. I'm surprised my head didn't blow off my head. But this amazing conversation comes in for coming through. And Twan, you know what's up? We box up and out.
Absolutely, we box up and out. Community Corner, Baltimore. Love y'all. Peace.
Let's see on out there. Deuces.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
In the broadcast.